The notice arrived like a guillotine. 72 hours to sell my family's market stall, or the HOA would seize it. Karen HOA, the HOA president, had scrawled her signature in red ink, as if marking her territory. The letter claimed my tiny shop passed down from my grandmother, who'd sold mangoes and handmade scarves for decades, was lowering property values. I stood in the middle of our vibrant community market, the air thick with the scent of lemongrass and jasmine, staring at the paper in disbelief. Around me, neighbors whispered, their eyes darting toward Karen's gleaming Mercedes parked arrogantly across two spaces. She'd been terrorizing us for months, but this was her boldest move yet, a power grab to gentrify our market into a soulless strip mall. Karen HOA was a vision of calculated cruelty, striding through our market in her stilettos, her designer handbag swinging like a weapon. She'd sneer at Mrs. Nguyen's noodle stall, call Mr. Tran's flower cart tacky, and demand we modernize or face eviction. Her latest scheme was to replace our stalls with luxury boutiques, and my little shop, with its weathered wooden sign and strings of fairy lights, was her first target. I had 3 days to sell, or she'd bulldoze my livelihood. The worst part? She didn't even live her rest, bought her way onto the HOA board with promises of progress, but all we saw was destruction. I wasn't alone in my fury. The market buzzed with outrage, but fear kept most silent. Karen had connections, lawyers, developers, even a cousin in City Hall. She'd already forced out 2 vendors, their stalls now padlocked and gathering dust. But I couldn't let her win. My grandmother's memory lived in every corner of my shop, in the faded photos of her smiling behind the counter. I called an emergency meeting that night, gathering shopkeepers under the flickering glow of a street lamp. We needed a plan, and we needed it fast. That's when Lynn, a quiet seamstress who'd kept to herself, stepped forward. She was an unlikely hero, her hands calloused from years of stitching, her eyes sharp with secrets. "I've been digging," she said, pulling out a stack of documents. Karen's been lying about the HOA's authority. The crowd gasped. Lynn revealed that Karen had forged signatures on the eviction notices, banking on our fear to push us out. Even more shocking, the land our market sat on wasn't fully owned by the HOA, it was leased from a forgotten trust, and the terms were ironclad. If we could prove her fraud, we could turn the tables. Lynn's revelation was our spark. We spent the next 48 hours in a frenzy, poring over records, contacting the trust, and rallying every vendor to fight. Karen, oblivious to our rebellion, escalated her campaign. On the second day, she stormed in a market with a crew of hired thugs, tearing down banners and smashing displays. My stall took the worst of it. Glass jars of pickled plums shattered, my grandmother's old sign splintered in 2. Karen stood amidst the wreckage, smirking, her silk scarf fluttering like a flag of victory. "This is progress," she declared, her voice dripping with condescension. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to scream. Instead, I snapped a photo of her gloating, knowing it would be evidence. The confrontation came on the final day, just hours before her deadline. We gathered in the market central square, a crowd of vendors, neighbors, and even a local reporter Lynn had tipped off. Karen arrived, expecting surrender, but found defiance. I stepped forward, holding the trust lease agreement, a document Lynn had unearthed, proving the HOA had no right to evict us. "You lied, Karen," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "This land isn't yours to sell." The crowd roared in support, and for the first time, Karen's smug facade cracked. She tried to bluster, claiming her lawyers would bury us, but the reporter was already filming. Then Lynn dropped the final bomb. Karen's cousin in City Hall had been caught in a corruption sting, and her forged documents were now under investigation. The trust, furious at her overreach, had already moved to penalize the HOA. Karen's face paled as the reality sank and she'd been outmaneuvered. The crowd pressed closer, chanting for justice, as she backed away, her heels catching on a broken piece of my stall's sign. Karen's empire crumbled swiftly. The trust not only voided her eviction notices, but invoked a penalty clause in the lease. The HOA, under her leadership, was now locked into a 99-year lease at triple the original rent, a financial death sentence for her gentrification dreams. Her allies abandoned her, and the market was ours again. We rebuilt, stronger than ever, with new signs and brighter lights. My stall, once a target, became a symbol of our resistance, its new wooden sign bearing my grandmother's name in bold letters. Karen disappeared from a neighborhood, her Mercedes replaced by a for sale sign on her office. Rumors swirled that she'd fled to avoid legal trouble, but her downfall was our triumph. The market thrived, drawing crowds from across the city, each vendor's story a testament to our unity. Lynn, once a quiet observer, became our unofficial leader, her courage inspiring us all. In the end, it wasn't just about saving our stall sit, it was about standing up to greed and reclaiming our community. We proved that even the smallest voices, when united, can topple a tyrant. What do you think? When is it right to fight back? And when should we let go? Share your thoughts, because every story like this starts with someone choosing to stand their ground.